For years, the death of Jeffrey Epstein has refused to fade from public memory. It wasn't just another prison death. It was the death of a man accused of operating one of the most disturbing criminal networks ever uncovered. A man whose name was linked to wealth, power, influence, and secrets. When authorities announced that Epstein had been found dead in his jail cell, the official explanation came quickly, but public trust did not. Instead of answers, the announcement ignited suspicion, disbelief, and endless debate. Even today, many people struggle to accept that such a high-profile prisoner could die under federal custody without deeper consequences. Before we go further, make sure you subscribe to this channel. These stories take time, research, and careful breakdowns, and subscribing helps us continue bringing you deep investigations that go beyond headlines. Jeffrey Epstein was being held at the Metropolitan Correctional Center in New York, awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges involving minors. The case against him was massive, and if convicted, he was facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. More importantly, Epstein wasn't just any defendant. He was someone who would spend decades moving in elite circles, forming relationships with powerful individuals across politics, finance, and global society. That alone made his detention unusually sensitive, and his safety should have been treated as a top priority. On August 10, 2019, Epstein was found unresponsive in his cell. Within hours, officials stated that he had died by suicide. But almost immediately, questions began to surface. How could this happen in a federal facility? Why was he alone? Why weren't guards watching him closely, especially given his previous mental health concerns? The more people learned, the more doubts began to grow. According to the Department of Justice, the FBI, and multiple oversight agencies, Epstein's death was investigated thoroughly. These investigations concluded that he took his own life. The findings were said to be consistent with the medical examiner's autopsy, internal prison reviews, and later reports from the Office of the Inspector General. On paper, the case seemed closed, but the details inside those same reports told a much messier story. The files revealed that the prison failed Epstein in nearly every possible way. Required wellness checks were not completed. Mandatory inmate counts were skipped. Surveillance systems malfunctioned. Guards assigned to monitor the unit admitted to falling asleep or being distracted. Even protocols specifically designed to prevent self-harm were ignored. While investigators said there was no evidence of murder, they openly acknowledged that the system responsible for protecting Epstein had completely broken down. Newly released Epstein files included FBI photographs taken after his death, images that had never been publicly discussed in detail before. These photos documented the scene inside the cell, the emergency response, and the condition of Epstein's body. While the images themselves are too disturbing to show, their descriptions have added fuel to public suspicion. Observers noted inconsistencies, unclear physical details, and unanswered questions about items allegedly involved in the incident. Surveillance footage has become one of the most controversial aspects of the case. On the night before Epstein was found dead, only one camera in the special housing unit was operational. Even that camera provided a poor quality image with limited visibility. It did not clearly show Epstein's cell or the hallway leading directly to it. At around 10:39 p.m., investigators observed a blurry orange-colored shape moving toward the tier where Epstein was housed. No one could conclusively determine what or who that figure was. Different agencies reviewed the same footage and reached slightly different interpretations. Some believed the movement could have been a correctional officer carrying supplies or laundry. Others believed the shape was more consistent with an inmate wearing a prison uniform. This disagreement matters because it challenges earlier statements suggesting that no one approached Epstein's area that night. With only one low-quality camera and blind spots throughout the unit, it became impossible to say with certainty who was where during the critical hours. The situation grows more troubling when examining guard activity that night. Officers assigned to the unit later admitted that required rounds and inmate counts were not conducted for hours. These checks were especially important because Epstein had previously been placed on suicide watch after an earlier incident weeks before. Despite this history, he was later housed alone and monitoring was reduced. Investigators concluded that from late evening until early morning, Epstein was effectively left unobserved. statements from prison staff revealed confusion and inconsistency. One officer described discovering Epstein and attempting to respond but struggled to recall key details during questioning. Another officer stated she did not observe certain items later referenced in reports. These contradictions did not prove foul play, but they exposed how poorly documented and managed the situation truly was. Another unusual detail revealed in the files involved the removal of Epstein's body from the facility. Due to intense media presence outside the prison, officials reportedly used a decoy to mislead reporters while the actual body was transported separately. Boxes and sheets were arranged to resemble a body and placed into one vehicle while another vehicle quietly carried Epstein's body away. While officials described this as a crowd control tactic, it was highly irregular and added to public distrust. Psychological reports from weeks before Epstein's death further complicate the narrative. According to these evaluations, Epstein repeatedly denied having suicidal thoughts. He described himself as focused on his legal defense and stated that he wanted to return to normal life. Although he admitted feeling unhappy and stressed, evaluators documented that he appeared future-oriented and invested in fighting his case. For many, these statements clash sharply with the final outcome. At the same time, internal prison documents suggested Epstein may have engaged in manipulative behavior regarding his housing conditions. Officials believed he sometimes attempted to influence psychological evaluations to avoid having a cellmate. One theory suggests Epstein may have harmed himself in an attempt to change his confinement situation, not necessarily intending to die. This theory does not suggest murder, but it does raise serious questions about how his mental state was assessed and monitored. Epstein's brother, Mark Epstein, has consistently rejected the official conclusion. Newly released FBI documents confirm that he submitted formal complaints and tips requesting further investigation, stating his belief that his brother may have been killed. These tips were reviewed by authorities, but investigators ultimately concluded there was no evidence supporting homicide or outside involvement. One of the most talked about revelations remains Epstein's will. Just 2 days before his death, Epstein signed documents transferring his vast wealth into a trust and allocating massive sums to specific individuals. Some view this as preparation for suicide. Others believe it indicates fear for his safety. Either way, the timing has raised eyebrows and continues to be debated. In the end, the Department of Justice concluded that while there were serious institutional failures, negligence, and misconduct, there was no evidence that Jeffrey Epstein was murdered. Charges against certain officers were later dropped in exchange for cooperation, officially closing the case. But for many people, the case has never truly felt closed. These Epstein files do not provide a single shocking revelation that changes everything. Instead, they paint a picture of systemic failure, missed warnings, and unanswered questions. They explain how something like this could happen, but they do not fully satisfy the public's demand for certainty. If you stayed with this story until the end, thank you. Cases like this remind us how fragile accountability can be, even at the highest levels. If you want more deep investigations like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, share this video, and stay connected. We'll continue to follow the facts wherever they lead.